Hi, I'm Jim Ward of the Middle Country Public Library, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode in our History Bites series. Today we will discuss the Lincoln-Douglas debates during the Illinois Senatorial Campaign in 1858, which largely concerned the issue of slavery extension into the territories. The slavery extension question had seemingly been settled by the Missouri Compromise nearly 40 years earlier. The Mexican War, however, had added new territories, and the issue flared up again in the 1840s. The Compromise of 1850 provided a temporary respite from sectional strife, but the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854, a measure Stephen Douglas sponsored, brought the slavery extension issue to the forefront once again. Douglas's bill in effect repealed the Missouri Compromise by lifting the ban against slavery in territories north of the 36 degrees 30 minutes latitude. In place of the ban, Douglas offered popular sovereignty, the doctrine that the actual settlers in the territories and not Congress should decide the fate of slavery in their midst. The Kansas-Nebraska Act spurred the creation of the Republican Party, formed largely to keep slavery out of the Western territories. Both Douglas's doctrine of popular sovereignty and the Republican stand on free soil were seemingly invalidated by the Dred Scott decision of 1857, in which the Supreme Court said that neither Congress nor the territorial legislature could exclude slavery from a territory. By 1858, Abraham Lincoln was the most prominent leader in the new Republican Party in Illinois, and the clear choice to run against Douglas for the Senate. He kicked off his campaign in earnest with a speech in Springfield that June, in which he famously declared that, quote, "A house divided against itself cannot stand. This government cannot endure permanently half slave and half free." Lincoln and Douglas met in 7 debates between August and October 1858, located in different congressional districts around the state. In all, they traveled over 4,000 miles during the Senate campaign. While Lincoln traveled by railroad, carriage, or boat, Douglas rode in a private train fitted with a cannon that fired a shot every time he arrived in a new location. The debates were each 3 hours long. Douglas repeatedly tried to brand Lincoln as a dangerous radical who advocated racial equality and disruption of the Union. Lincoln emphasized the moral injustice of slavery and attacked popular sovereignty for the bloody results it had produced in Kansas. Despite their length and often tedious format, the debates became a huge spectacle, attracting crowds of up to 20,000 people. Thanks to the many reporters and stenographers who attended and new technologies such as the telegraph and the railroad, the candidates' arguments drew national attention and would fundamentally alter the national debate over slavery and the rights of Black Americans. Lincoln attacked Douglas for his support of the Supreme Court's notorious 1857 decision in the Dred Scott case, which denied citizenship to all black people, enslaved or free, and accused him of seeking to make slavery legal throughout the United States. In the second debate on August 27th in Freeport, Lincoln asked Douglas whether or not popular sovereignty allowed settlers to exclude slavery from a territory before it joined the Union. Douglas said yes, clarifying that territories could choose not to enforce Dred Scott by withholding protection for slaveholders under local law. Known as the Freeport Doctrine, this stance alienated many Southerners and would come back to haunt Douglas during his 1860 presidential run. Douglas backed the idea that power was best exercised at the local level. By contrast, Lincoln argued that only the federal government had the power to abolish slavery. Douglas repeatedly attacked Lincoln's supposed radical views on race, claiming his opponent would not only grant citizenship rights to freed slaves, but allow black men to marry white women, an idea that horrified many white Americans at the time, and that his views would put the nation on an inevitable path to war. Lincoln responded that he had, quote, "no purpose to introduce political and social equality between the white and the black races," and that, quote, "a physical difference between the two would likely prevent them from ever living in perfect equality." But Lincoln made clear that he believed slavery was morally wrong. Although he retained his seat in the Senate, narrowly defeating Lincoln when the state legislature, which then elected U.S. senators, voted 54 to 46 in his favor, Douglas's stature as a national leader of the Democratic Party was gravely diminished. Lincoln, on the other hand, lost the election, but won acclaim as an eloquent spokesman for the Republican cause. Over the next 2 years, he would hone his arguments on the morality of slavery in speeches around the country, emerging as the dark horse Republican nominee in the 1860 presidential election. Meanwhile, Douglas's Democratic Party continued to split over the issue of slavery's extension. Douglas succeeded in winning the Democratic presidential nomination in 1860, but with Southern Democrats backing John Breckinridge, he won only one state, Missouri. Exhausted by the campaign as well as his efforts to rally Northern Democrats to the Union cause as the Civil War began, Douglas died in June 1861 when he succumbed to typhoid fever at the age of 48. Thank you for joining us for today's episode. If you enjoyed it, click like, and if you watched on YouTube, hit subscribe. Thanks so much, and we'll see you all next time.